Anyway, thank you all very much for coming. And we have two speakers for you today. First one is going to talk about physical books in the digital age. You know, in the last year, uh, digital books have increased because, can't get out to the bookstores, can't get out to the libraries. Because so, is there a future for ordinary books and then we will find about a wonderful project called the Tool Library. So take it away, Suzi, please.
So pleased to be here. Hello, everybody. So I want to encourage everybody to ask your questions along the way. You can use the chat. You can just stop me as I go. Would love to hear your questions and hopefully I can answer them, make this a conversation. So the question of do people still read? Do people still read physical hardcover books? I think if we were asking this question, yes, Pat, I think if we were asking this question a year ago, we were asking that question. Speaking as somebody who works at Indigo, which is Canada's, national bookseller, we were asking that question. Folks feel, I think a year ago, we were sort of in the depths of busy, hectic lives for a lot of people, particularly younger people, very drawn to digital, very drawn to Netflix and the proliferation of new channels of TV that you can now get, Disney Plus and Amazon Prime and Crave and HBO and all these new ways to consume media from your computer or from your phone even. And I think the other thing that's happened in the last 5 years particularly is, of course, the growth of social media. So many people are now consuming and reading via social media. So even when you think about news, a lot of people now no longer read a physical newspaper or even watch the news as we might have consumed it on TV. They are now looking to Facebook, Twitter, for example, for ways to consume the news. So consolidating what would have been, a long time reading a newspaper into bite size. I'm picking up this soundbite of news here and this soundbite of news here. And of course, we won't go into kind of what that does in terms of your perception of the news as you get quite a skewed view of it. So a year ago, we were asking those questions, and the concern was, yes, that physical book reading seemed to be not in decline when you look at the numbers, the research in Canada and in North America, not in decline, but just a gentle, flat, it's not growing, it's not getting bigger, it's kind of very gently going down. And then the pandemic hit, and folks across the world have been locked down at home. And there seemed to be in an early period where everybody turned to Netflix and TV and what they could do. And then gradually what we're hearing from Canadians is, well, I've done all that now, and it kind of makes me feel isolated and stressed, and I need an escape. I need something that calms my brain. I want to read stories that give me joy or inspire me take me outside of my existence. So the good news is, a year later, we are seeing a real resurgence of reading, whether it's among adults or young people or children. What's quite sad, I think, is that the public library has been very inaccessible this year for many Canadians, sadly, because of physically going into a library and getting a book. But the good news is there is a real rise in people accessing public library resources via their e-readers. So for those of you who have a Kobo, that does connect in with for example, the Toronto Public Library system, and you can download for free ebooks. So that's been a lifeline for many people. But yes, we are seeing a real resurgence in reading. And the other trend we're seeing is people wanting to step out of their comfort zone. So if you think about the books that you all choose to read, probably like me, you have your favorite authors, you probably have your favorite genres, whether you love fiction, whether you love poetry or non-fiction, whether you love autobiographies. Sometimes we get into a bit of a pattern into what we like to pick up when we're thinking about reading. And what we're seeing in the last 6 months or so is people saying, I don't like the way that my social media feed and my news feed is turning into a bit of an echo chamber. And I think the political situation we have been observing in the US, but of course we see it in Canada too, this really like divisive, you're either on this side or on this side, and no one seems to want to come together and discuss ideas. So because of that trend, we see more and more people saying, I need to step out of my comfort zone. I need to read things from different perspectives. Maybe I need to explore BIPOC authors of color who may have different stories and experiences to my own. Maybe I want to explore women voices where perhaps I have in the past been picking up male authors first. Maybe I want to explore fiction that comes from other countries, for example. So we're seeing a lot of that in the people thinking that they want to just step out of what they are used to. And so a big trend in terms of recommendations, trying to learn from other people what they really enjoy. I think we probably all like to ask each other, what have you been reading that you like, so that you can pick up ideas. It's quite hard to just go online or go into a bookstore and just kind of go with no idea and think, okay, what am I going to read next? We all look for those recommendations. So that's one piece of the trends. Definitely people now choosing to spend more of their time reading than perhaps they would have a year ago, due to the fact that so many of us are not doing the activities we were used to doing before the pandemic. And the other trend that's been for a few years now is different types of format. So yes, a lot of people choose now to read on their e-reader or their iPad, let's say. What's interesting is when they first came about, we thought, gosh, that'll be it. That'll be the death of the actual physical book. But many people still love the touch and the feel of a physical book. There's something visceral in that. There's something really kind of tangible in holding that book and turning the pages. Myself included, I really love a physical book. And there's also many people who really want to build their collection of books. There are lots of people who like to just give them away as soon as they've read them and take them in from places like little libraries or whatnot. And there are those who really like to cherish their books. So the hardcover books, whether they're paperback or hardcover, they're not going anywhere, I would say. We still see the majority of people reading in Canada are reading a physical book, whether they bought the book, whether they got it secondhand, or whether they've borrowed the book from the public library. That's definitely still the vast majority of people reading in Canada. But we do see a growth in people choosing to read on their e-readers or their iPads or whatnot. What's interesting is it tends to be people who choose to do both. So I'm not going to switch over entirely to, like, I've got a Kobo, for example. I really enjoy my Kobo. I love it for reading in places where it's awkward to have a physical book, like, you might be in the bath, or for me, it's when I'm camping and I can or I'm on the beach or something, I can kind of easily bring it out and read in it. But I still like a physical book. So I would say I'm probably 50-50 between the two of those. So that's what we see, most people choosing a bit of both. But the really interesting rise in the last couple of years has been the rise of audiobooks. And there's various different ways to consume audiobooks. And really interesting usage, particularly among younger people, people who are teenagers or people in their 20s or 30s, who perhaps don't feel like they have the time to sit down and physically read a book, but they want to listen to a book when they're doing other things. So I may be going out for a run or for a walk. I may be, tidying my house, and I feel like I can consume a book through my headphones whilst I'm doing something else. And perhaps that's a better use of my time than just perhaps listening to music. So we hear that quite a lot. And the other trend, which is quite nice, is people using audiobooks, as a calming method to get to sleep. So it's really like going back to your childhood bedtime story, and I know some people use meditation apps as well, to have someone reading a story to calm your brain to get you to sleep. But some people using that as a way to just get into the zone of sleep before they fall asleep, which I think is a really lovely idea. So we see the rise of different types of way of consuming stories or books, whether it's a physical book, an ebook, or an audiobook. The other thing that impacts reading, and I hadn't appreciated this before I started at Indigo, is the books that are out there, the books that are launched. So it's really quite incredible in a year where you get a massive hit of a book. And so the big hit of 2020 was, well, maybe I'll ask, can anyone guess what was the best-selling book of 2020?
Was it Michelle Obama?
It was her husband's book. That's right, Pat.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was Barack Obama's.
Barack Obama, yeah.
So you're right. When Michelle Obama's book came out, which I think was 2018, he was
Yes.
by far the biggest hit of the year.
Mm.
And then he launched his book just back in, I think it was late October. And it has been a phenomenal success. It's actually a very expensive book as well. It's a really big book. It's a very expensive book. So that means when they track the sales, it's obviously it's easier for him to kind of get to the top of the list. But when you've got a year where there's big hits, if you like, then you end up getting a lot of people who wouldn't normally read a lot choosing to pick that book up and read it. And I hadn't really appreciated that there's people who are really avid readers, bookworms. They've always got books on the go. You know, there's maybe 2 or 3 books that they've got on their bedstand and their nightstand, and they're constantly reading. And then there's a lot of people who may choose to read 1 or 2 books in a year, but only if those books are going to be interesting to them. So perhaps they have something going on in their life and they choose to pick up a book. So, you know, an example might be finding out that you have a child who's, you know, on the autism spectrum, and so you want to learn more about that, so you pick up a book to help you through that, or you experience a loss or a grief in your life, or perhaps you're choosing a certain new diet, so you pick up a kind of cookbook, that sort of thing, and you read through that. But for lots of people, unless there's something specific, they're not necessarily going to bake reading into their daily lives. So it's when you get these really big names, and a lot of people like to gift those books to other people, that you see a real surge in the number of people who would be buying a book and the number of people who'd be reading a book, which was really fascinating to me. So some years, so before 2020, the year of 2019, there weren't very many big book launches. There were lots of launches, but none were really stand out like that. So then there's just fewer people who are going to be interested in any one of those smaller books. And then you get the big hits that come along. Interesting anecdote about Obama's book. He was writing it for years, and he's such a prolific writer. It's a really long book. For those of you who have seen it, it's a really big book. But there's actually no publishing facilities in North America that can print or printing facilities, I should think, who can print such a large book. So I believe it was printed in Germany, and then they had to put all of the copies onto a massive ship and bring it over to North America, because there's just not the facilities to print such a large book. So I think the publisher was telling him to stop writing, Barack. You've made it too long. We have to stop there. We can't print it anymore. Yeah, folks get very excited about some of the big names when they come along.
Oh, can I interject for a sec, Susie?
Please do.
You know, when you get a sense of book launches, is that the Toronto Library at the Bluma Pal Salon, they always have guest speakers and they promote their books. So you also get a trend of what's being done is by the volume of guest speakers that the library has. So that's also a Geiger, if you want.
Yeah, it's a great point.
To find out.
It's a great point. The other thing that's happened a lot with books in the last few years is you can now, for those who want to buy books, who are not borrowing books, you can now buy books in so many places. It was never like that years ago. So now you can buy your books in Shoppers Drug Mart, you can pick them up in the grocery store, you know, you can pick them up in Walmart and whatnot. Of course, you can buy them online with Amazon and others. And so now there's just so many different places that people can buy books as well. That on the one hand means that the best-selling books, so the ones that more people want to buy, they are more accessible. But the question is, of course, all the millions and millions and millions of what we like to call the stacks, you know, the books that are not the bestsellers, they may have been launched years ago, so many specialist books. The difficulty, of course, is how do you make sure that those books are available for people if they want them, but then there's such small numbers of people buying them that it's quite difficult for smaller bookstores particularly to have all of the right books that people may or may not walk in to buy. So yeah, any further questions?
So yeah, so Susie, when you mentioned audiobooks, we start with that one. Do you think it's when you think of this? I understand people listening to books. Do you think it's a healthy shift, or could people ultimately lose touch with reading, just like they're losing touch with writing? With any thoughts about that, or?
I think when you think about the experience of reading a book, there is the
Yes.
images that are conjured up by
Right.
what you're reading, which you
Yes.
can glean if someone's reading it to you. But there's something about the beauty of the words themselves and reading
Yes.
the language and really appreciating the words. I personally find I don't listen to a lot of books on audio, but I do listen to a lot of podcasts. And I find it hard to really concentrate when I'm not physically reading the text.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do wonder if people are sort of half listening, as it were, and it's more like background. And I do think you miss something of the experience when you're not looking at the word. And I think for kids, it's concerning a little bit, because the more you look at words, the more you understand how they go together, how they're
Mm-hmm.
spelt, how you use them. And obviously, if you're only ever reading to a child and the child's not reading for themselves, then they don't quite, get that same grasp of the language.
Mm. I mean, the audio books are good for people who are going blind, so for older people, that's a plus there. Personally, I'm always exchanging, or people are giving me books, because I won't pay $30 so I don't get to read the latest books until a few years time, but that unless you get it out of the library, then it's okay.
What's surprising as well is the idea of book clubs. For some people, we think, oh, does anyone go to book clubs anymore? Is that the thing anymore? But when we speak to people, it really is still a thing that people do. And what's interesting, I'm hearing more and more men joining book clubs as well. And younger men, which is interesting.
Yes.
And I think for those of us who've been in book clubs, I think they can be incredibly valuable. It's wonderful to be able to experience that, reading a book with a group, discussing the themes that it comes up, and then all just being a kind of, support group for each other, if that makes sense.
Well, it's an ongoing education, isn't it? Like, you never stop learning. I didn't read that much when I was young. I wasn't very good, it took time, so you don't expect too much from kids at first.
Absolutely. Every day is a school day.
So Susie, with Indigo, how do they decide? Do they have like the top 10 for the month, or recommending what to read, or how do they decide that? Or do they pick the Canada's top 10, or they have their own version of that? Or
so Indigo has various versions. So there is what we call Heather's picks. So Heather Reisman, who's the chief book lover, as she calls herself, she reads an incredible amount of books. Like, they really are, it is really her reading them. And if she thinks it's a good book, then it gets that stamp of approval.
Right.
We, like most booksellers, we also have what we like to call staff picks of the month. And so there is a panel of people in Indigo, a panel of employees who will read a ton of different books. They'll do it at the teen level and at the adult level. And they make recommendations based on various criteria. And I think people really value that, so that they know that other people have decided this is a good book, as it were. And then the other thing that happens is there's seasonality, of course, and there's trends. So the Canada Read list just came out. That is a massive driver. This year they've made a real shift in the judges. So they've tried to have a more varied and diverse group of judges, and they've actually selected on the long list, they've selected many smaller, lesser well-known voices and books from smaller Canadian publishers. So it's quite interesting from that point. And then you get the surprises. So on the inauguration on Wednesday, for those who watched it, we had the wonderful American poet laureate, Amanda Gorman, because I don't know.
Yes.
And So what was really interesting is the people in Indigo who track customers who are online on indigo.ca, there's a massive decline as the inauguration starts, because everybody was watching the inauguration, nobody's shopping on Indigo. And then right at the moment where she starts her poem, we suddenly got a lot of people searching her name, and she's an author. She's already got, I think it's one book is already published, and she's got a children's book coming out, I think it's in September. So a huge spike in people searching her name, searching her work, wanting to buy her books or understand what books she has. So that's a really interesting, so some of those peaks we can predict and we can make sure we have the books ready. But sometimes it's things that we don't think are going to happen like that. And so those books will sell out overnight. And then it takes a publisher quite a while to catch up to get new books into bookshops. That sometimes happens with TV adaptations or movie adaptations. So for those of us who've watched Bridgerton, for example, it's based on a set of Julia Quinn novels from years ago. So they would have been, you know, not many people would have, well, a certain number of people would be buying them, but nothing particularly dramatic. And then as soon as that hit Netflix, those books, suddenly everybody wants to read them again.
What was it called?
So Suzi, do you?
Bridgerton.
Sorry, Pam.
Bridgerton. Yeah.
It's called Bridgerton, and the novel, the first novel, is called The Duke and I by Julia Quinn.
Yes.
So they are essentially going to take, I think they're going to carry on and do adaptations of her other novels as well.
Right.
Sorry, Joan, go ahead.
Sorry, a question. So do you find that also a reflection of what you put out is a reflection immediately of current events? So like when you heard about that Amanda Gorman, so if there's something that's like Julie Payette, or you know how she blew it yesterday.
Yeah.
But no, but so then that something like that would trigger, okay, a surge of you have you get an idea of what people are Googling, like they want to Google her to find out what her name is, what she's done. And so trends also make a difference too. Does that happen?
Absolutely. So last year in 2020, so you can imagine a lot of people looking for support on mental health, people looking for cooking, people looking for books on gardening and knitting and all these things that people wanted to learn how to do last year because they were stuck at home. But also big trends. So when George Floyd was murdered, that really sparked, you know, the whole Black Lives Matter rising, and a lot of people looking to educate themselves on, you know, anti-racism. And so Indigo had at the time this small section of anti-racist literature and books. And every year for Black History Month, it's something that becomes a big, you know, a big deal once a year. But we were not expecting this massive overnight interest. And so the good news is that they sold out immediately. The bad news was it took us a while to catch up to get the books back in so that people could get them. And I know the same with public libraries. It was really hard to get your hands on those popular books. So Joan, we try to predict those things. So there are some things that are just seasonal, like Christmas. There's going to be a bunch of people reading, you know, Christmas stories, and Easter. People are going to buy stories about Easter for their children if they're religious, and other religious holidays and that sort of thing. And then when it comes to that, if there's big books coming out, like a few years ago when Trump first came into office, and there were the first books that came out about his presidency, some of those books we knew were going to be quite big, so we're able to predict. But then some things come out of the blue. And then interestingly with movies, sometimes a movie does really well and it will really drive the book that was behind the movie. But sometimes a movie's terrible, and so we expect a massive increase and then it doesn't come. And so sometimes it's you're guessing, basically.
I have a question for you. So with all this, I guess, rise in alternatives to hard copies of books, do you find that publishers are putting more directing more attention to like the tactile or the aesthetic quality of the books themselves? Because there's a book I've just finished, Washington Black, a little while ago.
I'm on that book.
It's awesome. The version I have, the paper is beautiful, and it's got a beautiful illustration on the cover, and there's a lot of detail, more than maybe I've seen in the past in other books. But I mean, do you find that that's something that's happening?
Yeah, I do. And you know, it's always been important for book cover to stand out and to capture the attention of people. But I do think there is a lot more focus on how the book looks and feels when you pick it up. I don't actually know what it's called, but I don't know if you've noticed that books are often bound differently these days. So instead of the pages being flat to each other like this, they are jagged. I don't know if you've seen books like that.
That's what this version of Washington Black is like for me.
I remember distinctly the first book I bought like that. I was actually Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In years ago. I was in an American airport and I thought, I'm going to buy a book for the trip home. And I went into the airport and I wanted to buy into this shop and I wanted to buy the book, and the pages were like that new jagged. I actually don't know what it's called. I remember I went up to the counter, they were all like that, and I went up to the counter and I said, there seems to be something wrong here. All of your books seem to be bound incorrectly. And the woman said, no, that's how they are these days. I was like, okay, sorry.
Wow.
So even things like that, I think they're playing with how they exactly put the book together and the binding of the book, etc.
Interesting.
So Kelly, you mentioned Washington Black. What's that about?
Well, okay, it's about a boy, and it's begins, I believe, in the early 1800s, and he's a slave in not Bermuda, Bahamas.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he doesn't have a very good life at the beginning, and then a man arrives who essentially is the brother of the plantation owner. And so there's all these different politics around that, because there's a father who dies and all this stuff. And then there's all these slaves, basically. Yeah. And there's stories about them. And then I'm not going to give away too much, but there's a sort of a tragic event. Yeah. And the brother of the plantation owner who's like a naturalist, he's a scientist.
Right.
And he has taken Washington Black under his wing and has cultivated his ability to illustrate. And so he's this beautiful illustrator, and he's only, I don't know, like he's 10 or 11 or something like that. And then a tragedy happens and they have to flee. They have to flee the plantation, and they have to go. And it's his adventures, I guess, afterwards that unfold. It's amazing. It's fantastic.
Sounds good. Yes,
it's very
cool. Washington Black. I'll look for that. Okay.
Well,
yeah, it's by Essie Edougian. Is that how you say it?
That's right. It's a Canadian author.
Yeah, she wrote this one called Half-Blood Blues.
That's right.
Really good.
Yeah,
as well.
She won the Governor General's for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible.
When I get to the end of it, I will pass it on to somebody who wants to read this story.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. So when you think of, we've heard about how Indigo might choose some of their top 10, and because I'm an avid reader, when we grew up, my dad, we had this library that we had the Arabian Nights, we had the Greek myths, I mean, you name it, and Jules Verne and all that stuff. So how would you say, for people that aren't reading much, what advice might you give them to get into reading, if they're saying, so what do I read? How do you start? Because there's so many different genres. I mean,
yeah, I would say it's a great place to start to ask friends, people that you trust, and people who you think might have the similar tastes to you. Right. But otherwise, there are many lists you can go to. So a simple Google search, whether it's Indigo or whether it's another provider, there is a really great website called Goodreads, where people put their reviews and they talk about books that they love, etc. And one way in is to think about, a story or an area that you want to explore a bit more. So, do you want to learn about, as I say, anti-racism, or do you want to learn about the history of something specific? And think about that and how you might kind of move into books that way. But the other thing is, Googling stories that, for those who don't want a heavy read, who want a light read, they want to be entertained, Googling stories that, are more light entertainment, or some people want to be completely taken away from the day-to-day right now and, have some kind of fantasy stories and whatnot. I think you have to think about the mood that you're in, what you're into, what you want to learn. And I guess try things out. I think if you're in the middle of a book, I always try and make it to the end of a book, even if I'm really not liking the book. But I would say free yourself up from that. If you're not loving the book, then, you know, you can give it to someone else or
Right.
take it to the little libraries in the neighborhood. Because it's a lot of time when you're reading a book. So there's so many books you could be reading. So if you're not loving it and it's not inspiring you, I feel like you should let it go. But I always like think, well, maybe it gets really good at the end, and I'll just continue to the end.
You sort of give it a break. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting because I remember when I was trying to get into J.K. Rowling's initially, because there was a lot of children reading it, and I wanted to sort of be able to relate that. It would start out slower and would pick up, and then it became faster and faster. It was like being on a roller coaster.
The other thing that I like that you brought up J.K. Rowling, I wanted to talk to you about is booksellers like Indigo, Barnes and Noble, Waterstones in the UK, all the big booksellers, they're really struggling with the concept of how do you provide books that everybody feels, let's say, safe with the content on. You don't want to start censoring. You know, you need to provide books that people want to read.
Right.
But how do you deal with when there has been a backlash against a certain author, or certain books are now deemed to be really inflammatory or to have hate speech in them? How do you deal with that? Because on the one hand, you should, you know, it is not Indigo's job to censor literature. People should be able to read whatever they want to read, even if I don't want to read that, someone might want to read it out there. But how do you also make sure that, you know, particularly for our employees who feel very passionately, the people who work in our stores, they feel really passionately about certain authors versus other authors. So we're all grappling with that. There's no perfect solution to that. But essentially, we kind of are talking about a policy whereby the author is disconnected from the author's work. Because what we're finding now is, of course, a lot of authors who've been around for many, many years, you know, people back in our, you know, in our childhoods or our parents' childhoods, etc. Now it's transpiring that they had problematic things in their lives. They might have been, you know, a proponent of slavery, for example, or you know, perhaps not been anti-feminist or something like that in the past. So how do you do about the fact that that author may have created works that are cherished and people love them? So we're really trying to figure out the right way forward from that point of view. And I think the right way forward is to make sure we have really basic rules about if something is has direct hate speech in it, if it includes information about how to make weapons, or if, and there's some very strict rules on pornography. I think our rules on pornography are if it has child pornography, is banned from Indigo, but if it's pornographic in general, then that's not necessarily banned. So we have very few rules as to why we would not stock a book, but we're looking at, you know, essentially how can we deal with all sorts of different points of view when it comes to what is and isn't acceptable. It's not easy.
So Margaret Atwood, particularly, I don't really like her style, right? And so I didn't want to see The Handmaid's Tale because she's witty. Right. But I watched it on Crave and I got so into it, I couldn't believe it. And the thing is, yes, there was a lot of violence or you know, towards women, but there was a message in it as well, like the girl's determination to see through this to try and get to her child. But anyway,
no, you're right.
Whereas I don't like Margaret Atwood because she's too weird, and yet it was so interesting. If you know what I mean. Yeah, I mean, because I'm old, right?
Absolutely. I think and there's a lot of that where there'll be a huge tribe who are really into a certain author, and then there'll be people who are really against that kind of author. So it's really, we have to make sure that we have stories that, you know, all sorts of Canadians will want, rather than, as I say, being very censorial. That's not our job. But at the same time, there are some of those stories that make people feel unsafe or, you know, excluded, etc. So it's it's a real challenge to try to bring that together into something that's a policy that we can get behind.
But you know, they put, particularly Canadian, they push Margaret Atwood because she's Canadian.
Yeah, she's a national treasure.
Yeah, like, but at the same time, after what's happened with Trump, like, these people are not reading stuff like that. These, you know, they were taking over in a terrible way. That was you know, like these religious nuts, really.
Yeah.
In the book. Anyway.
It's funny you say that, because I read The Handmaid's Tale, I feel like it was at the beginning of the pandemic. I don't know why I decided that would be the time, and it felt very dark. Like,
yes.
you read it and you're like, oh, this is terribly dark. I need something lighter.
Yeah.
Well, when you think of the, to your point, Pat, the whole canvas that the landscape described in the book, we're not that far away from that. I mean, all it would take is one bureaucracy, one administration to start treating women as if. And there's been many dystopia books and films that had the future where there was some form of humanity was almost sterile. Children of Men was another one of those other alternative dystopias, where I mean, if you've never seen that or read the book, it's quite remarkable.
Children of Men.
Children of Men, yes, it did. The world cannot have children. I guess one mother gives birth, but of course they parallel this to the birth of Jesus, and how, and without giving it away, every different interest group wants to co-opt this baby for their platform, whether it be Messiah, whether it be, I mean, you name it. Yeah, and it's the list goes on. Yeah, but it's quite powerful.
Heavy, right?
It's a good movie. It's a really good movie.
Oh yes.
But it's a heavy movie.
It is. But again, it reminds us that there's things that could happen like that we're not that far away from that, as people are having less children and whatnot. But so when you think of you mentioned the rough edge books, and you were talking about that with Barack Obama's book, how they needed to go to Germany to produce a large book. I find that comedic. I mean, like, so what? They start making books by the pound, and okay, well, if it's over an inch, we can't print it in Canada, or we produce volume.
I don't fully understand it, but
it sounds absurd.
Yeah, I don't fully understand it myself. But I think years ago there used to be so many different printing.
Yes, the textbooks from university were ginormous. I mean, yeah, they were practically, you needed a U-Haul trailer sometimes to carry them from point A to point B. I find that
got rid of those presses, like, you know, because they're too expensive.
That's true. Yes.
I mean, why didn't he do it in two volumes?
I don't understand that, Pat. We were asking the same question. He could have done 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he plans to do
it. Could have made more money, probably.
Well, I pre-ordered that for Bill, and it was a special gift for Christmas. Yeah, so that's why I gave him to them.
A very gifted book. A very gifted book this Christmas, yeah.
Well, and there was a scene that was posted online related to Obama. So it showed Michelle Obama, and she's masked, and Kamala Harris, she's masked, and I can't remember which one's wearing blue and which one's wearing purple. But it was pardon me? No, so it was so powerful, because Michelle is looking, they can't hug, right? Is looking at her, pointing with her eyes, with her finger, I see you. And then Kamala has her hands crossed, just, you know, you can tell there's a gushing moment of gratitude that just captures it. It's so powerful, so powerful. Yeah.
I just to interject, I thought Hillary Clinton looked so unhappy because she should have been the first woman president.
Yeah.
And she's seeing the first vice woman president. Yes. So it must have stuck in her craw, eh?
Yeah.
I felt for her, really.
I agree. Poor thing. She was really robbed, wasn't she, 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Timing is everything, right?
Anyway.
Yes. There you go. Yes. So Suzi, how do we, if we want to get maybe access to the top 10 at Indigo, I guess we could just go online, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I will. I'll share with you the latest top lists. I'm going to send them to you afterwards, actually, so you can share them with the group. As I say, the Canada Reads lists have just come out. We're going into Black History Month. A lot of people looking into that. And then, you know, various other lists depending on what people are looking for. So I'll share a few links.
I mean, it might be interesting to put that in the network just to let people know what's out there to read. Yeah, it's a conversation starter. Yes. So
we don't know her.
So do people have more questions of Suzi? I mean, I see. No, Robin and Kathy. Which Robin and Kathy is that?
I think it's my mum and dad.
Oh, really? Are they calling in? Are they ringing in from England?
I get them from Wales. I would hope.
Wales. Okay. Oh, wow! Isn't that great? Okay.
Yes. Oh, that's great.
Good to have you on the call. Now, what time is it in Wales? Okay.
Oh, what time is it? 10 minutes to 7.
Okay.
My dinner's on hold so that I can look at it.
You haven't got your video on.
Oh, well, you don't want to see me.
Well, we're actually having Simon on the February the 12th. He's doing Welsh cakes, so you must tune in then. Okay.
Oh, yes. We saw his first one.
Yeah, we're going to have him. It's sort of timely with Pancake Tuesday. We thought we'd have.
We're on lockdown here in Wales. We're on lockdown.
We're all here too. Yes, we're gonna figure out how to beam each other up. I mean, that'll be the next. We'll bring Star Trek. You'll beam each other over or something. Or figure out holographic universe. Yes. So do people? Do you have a question of Suzi? As I mean, your daughter, lovely daughter. What should you be reading in Wales?
Yes. What should I be reading, Suzi?
I would say same as what I said. So it depends on your mood, I think. Depending if you want to, you know, entertain and escape, or whether you want to be learning a new skill or a new activity. I think there's so much out there, right?
Doesn't Robertson Davies have a couple of his novels set in Wales?
There you go.
Oh,
I think so.
Bread in the Bones, is that one of his?
Yeah, that's one of his. Fifth Business.
Yes.
They're slipping my mind. Yeah, Bread in the Bone, Fifth Business. I have the trilogy somewhere around here, but I can't look at it right now. It's in the other room.
Wonderful. Okay.
But yeah. Set in Wales, some of them.
I remember years ago reading it was a detective mystery novel. It was about a Welsh detective, and I mean, it was so long ago, but I remember him referring to Cymru as the language of Wales, and he spoke it. Can't remember the title, but yeah, it was quite something. So, anyone else? Any questions of Suzi?
I have this beautiful book written by Stephen Leacock. It's called The Foundations of Its Future. My father left it to me. It was published in 1941.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Isn't that something?
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Quite a
Other illustrations too.
Quite an author of notoriety, definitely. Yeah, well, thank you, Gerald. Any other questions from people?
Actually, I looked up Obama's book on the internet, and it says it's 768 pages. Do you think that's correct, Suzi?
It's a really big book.
And he has 28-hour audio book edition.
Oh, apparently the audiobook is really great. As he reads it, is apparently really great. I've not heard it, but people rave about it. Yes, it's really long, and it's not his first book. He had a book years ago, right?
Yeah, I read that one. Yeah.
Dreams from My Father, I think it was called.
Yeah, and Audacity of Hope.
Yes, yes. He's quite a prolific writer.
So you inspired me to order the book by Amanda Gorman on poetry from Indigo. Yeah, because Amazon didn't have it. Yeah.
What a ray of sunshine she was on Wednesday.
Oh my!
For sure.
Oh my!
Literally.
And many. It's interesting because when you think of her hat, it reminded me of a Jackie O hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of style. Yeah, very powerful. It's power dressing. Yes. So Suzi, do you have any further thoughts as we had some wonderful ideas you shared? And yeah.
No, I would say obviously encourage us all to keep reading. It's great for our brain. It's great for our mental health. I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's been more difficult to get books for a lot of people who rely on the public library. So the little libraries in our neighborhoods are a pretty great resource for those who want to pick up secondhand or free books. Yeah, let's keep swapping recommendations.
Yeah.
Thanks,
That's
Susie.
a very good idea.
Ready?
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Very good. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Now you're more than welcome to stay on as we bring our next wonderful speaker to the table. And or do people need a stretch break, or are they okay? They're good. Okay. Kelly, do you need a stretch break? No, you're good.
I think I'm okay.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Very good. Yeah. So, well, as Susan introduced you about the tool library, but I think it was a while back you mentioned. I think it was maybe even Marianne who mentioned you had a connection with the tool library. And when we were pre-COVID, we had this wonderful idea. We were going to get the Tinkers and the tool library and on site and connecting. And here we are. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just for the beginning part, I'm going to welcome you and spotlight you. And I think I can figure out how to do that. Okay, there we go. So we can see you in the main frame. And welcome. Just to remind you, Kelly has read scripture in the past at Manor Road, and your more recent child was baptized.
Not yet.
Okay, there was I wasn't testing it, but I thought okay, but yeah, quite lovely. And so over to you, Kelly.
Okay. Well, thank you, John Joseph, and thank you, Susie. I thought that was really interesting, and you are such a great speaker. I'm not that as great, so I'm going to rely on a presentation that I put together, a slideshow. So I'm just going to switch to that, share my screen with you.
What I can do is I can make you co-host, so you can do that. 1 second, let me just do. Yeah, then you'll have that ability. And there we go. You are now co-host. Great, perfect. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you. I got to find the one I want. Okay. Now, what do you guys see there?
Fun with the Toronto Tool Library.
Okay.
Part-time petterer. I love that.
Okay. So that's this is the topic of my little presentation today. Fun with the Toronto Tool Library. Yeah, let me just, I have it here. I'm gonna look here and then speak to it as I go. Okay, so Fun with the Toronto Tool Library. I just wanted to introduce what the Tool Library is and what it does and what it offers to the community, and my own personal experience with it. And like I say in the slide there, part-time putterer, which means I like to, I like, what is puttering around? Just doing little things that aren't that important, small jobs, keeping yourself busy. And I didn't do much last weekend, I just puttered around. So that's the kind of stuff I like to do in my I have a little shop. I have a photo of it that I'll show you. And yeah, here we go. So that's me in front of my shop. I have a few projects going on in there. It's very small, as you can see. It's not very big at all. And so, yeah, so this is basically where I do certain things. And
it's very organized.
Well, it has to be. So the Tool Library is, it's been around since 2012, I believe. And I joined this summer. It was a present from Cheryl, who gave it to me. It was like partially, to be completely honest and full disclosure, I wasn't having the best time when the lockdown happened. It was, I found it pretty difficult being locked up. And so one of the things that we thought would be good is if, I kept myself busy doing little jobs, little projects. And the first project that we ended up working on was Cheryl's idea, and she's presented this on this.
Yes,
see, these are some of the things that Cheryl came up with. And so I was tasked with how to do that, how to drill the holes and so on in these. And so that's a picture of me and Cheryl. This is me pre-COVID weight gain, and that's Cheryl there. So she easily convinced me to get this done. Okay, so basically you have these china plates, and the tool library, I guess I should talk about like exactly what that is first. First of all, you join, I was given a membership for my birthday. And what you're able to do then is go down, they have thousands of tools there for woodworking, for metalworking, for gardening, for, you know, anything that you might want to heavy, you know, construction, ladders, they have like anything that you might need for do-it-yourself project, right? So there's thousands of tools there. And so you buy a membership that lasts a year, and then you can go and you can take out, similar to a library, I guess there's a certain theme here, like books. You can withdraw, you can take out from the tool library any one of these tools for, depending on your membership, for a certain amount of time. I just have a basic membership, so that means I can borrow any tool for up to 3 days. So I first signed out this drill press because I looked online and figured out how to do these, how to drill the holes in the plates. And so once I figured that out, I knew I needed a drill press, and I didn't have one. So I decided, well, I'm going to sign one out from the tool library, and I purchased that. It's called that little red bit there that you see here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but that's a diamond drill bit that you purchase that can drill the hole. So basically I signed this thing out for a couple of days, for 3 days. And Cheryl gave me a bunch of plates. And so I went to work, and you basically locate the center of the plate. You put tape on it so that it doesn't chip. And then you can drill a hole. You put water on it to stop the drill bit from overheating. And then you can drill a hole in it. And Cheryl has ordered these, I guess you call them brackets or the hardware. And they fit together, and you come up with these plate stands, which are really quite beautiful and functional, really, because you can put a lot of cakes and cookies on these things. So they're really nice. We gave one to the church, so hopefully you guys can all see it when we were able to get together after service one Sunday and see each other again. So that was the first thing I did with the tool library, and I really sort of enjoyed the drilling part of it into stone, because it's something that I hadn't done that much before. And so I also have this I had this idea to put together a little standing man from rocks that we gathered on a camping trip that we picked up in Lake Superior. So the hammer is just there to show you how big it is, but this guy I basically used a drill bit, the same one, and put some doweling in and a little bit of silicone. And this man can basically stand on his own. And I put him in an aquarium. You can see it here. This is just before I planted all the plants. Funny thing is, I bought this aquarium from Manor Road at a garage sale one year for $10, and it sat in my basement for a couple of years before I just started it up this summer. But this is what it looks like now. You can see the man is back there. Again, done with a tool taken out from the tool library. The drill press there. So that's one of the other things that's kept me busy. And another thing that I've worked on is I helped my friend, a good buddy of mine, install a new flooring in his condo. And so we signed out these saws from the tool library. That's a miter chop saw there in front that works like this. You just pull it down and you can cut the boards to fit. And we also signed out a table saw, small table saw. And so we were cutting all the boards ourselves and installing them. Here's the floor. It was quite a nice, fulfilling project because the floor looked so beautiful when we were done. So that's something, a do-it-yourself project. Now, if you recall, my workshop is pretty small, and so I wouldn't have the space to put these tools even if, you know, I wanted to buy them. So it's a really cool functional idea, and I think it's really neat. It's part of what they call the sharing economy. So all kinds of different things, you know, you can take lawnmowers out from there. You know, you don't necessarily have to purchase your own lawnmower. It's kind of a really cool concept. And there's the table saw. This was at the end of the day. Another thing that I worked on using the tool library were these toolboxes that I made. We made these for gifts for some friends over the holidays. And so those saws that you saw, I was able to cut things really almost assembly line like, because you know, you keep everything at the same setting, and you can get it done really quite quickly. And so I signed out. I also signed out. This is called a router table. Sorry, it's a little blurry. And again, a table saw. And so you can see there, it's the shop working on it. See, I have to keep the door open usually. And then I cut them all into, I cut the pieces all up at the beginning, and then just assembled these boxes. They turned out really quite nice, actually. And there's, I routed a little slot in the side that could slide in, so we could slide in a divider. So it's got two compartments, and yeah, so, and we gave them to some of our friends. Again, this is a little blurry, I'm sorry, but we sanded them up. I sanded them up really nice, and then we put in like Christmas cards and some gifts for their children and things that we had just put together, some coloring books and things. And so it was really nice personal kind of gift that we gave to our friends, and it was made possible by the tool library, which is kind of nice. And what I'm working on right now is again with the table saw, are these are called cornhole boards. You know, it's for that game that you play. We're going to take them when we go camping, but you know, that's basically 4 feet high there, and there's a hole in them, and you put them a certain distance apart, and then you sort of have a competition throwing in a bean bag into the hole, and then if you get points, if it's, you know, somewhere on the board or whatever. It's just kind of something fun to play outside. So I'm making these, and I used the table saw, and then you can see the perfect circular hole that's done with it's called what's it called? Sorry, I'm getting nervous. I forget the name. Saw. It's called a hole saw, actually. Basic name, hole saw. So it's a 6-inch hole saw that I used to drill those holes, and basically that's what I'm working on right now.
Are you taking orders?
well, we'll see. Yeah. And then future things I'm planning on keeping busy with, again, with things taken out from the tool library. I've collected these 3 old beat up metal toolboxes, all made by a Canadian company that doesn't exist anymore. It's called Beach, down in it's like around Gananoque, some factory down there. And so I'm going to like take off all the handles and the latches, and sand it all down, and then refurbish all the handles and latches and reattach them, re-rivet them. And I'll paint it, I'll prime it and paint them, and then we'll use them for something. But that's something I plan to do later in the year. And then but I'll have to sign out things like a grinder and other tools that'll help work with the metal. And so it's kind of fun as well, because you get to do stuff that you wouldn't necessarily get a chance to do otherwise, because I haven't done this one before, this type of project before, and I'm looking forward to it. But you know, you get to learn as you do it, and the tools you can take out from the library allow you to do that. Something I should also say is that the library, the tool library, offers courses on things if you don't necessarily know how to do something. So they can teach you how to do something. And they also have something called what they call the maker space. And so you can go in there and bring your project, and then you just use the tools that are in the library. Then you don't necessarily have to bring them home then if you don't have a place to do stuff. So it's multifaceted in its options for doing things yourself, or doing creative, crafty stuff. You know, and it's all, there's the only location that's open right now is the downtown location, which is on Spadina. But there's a couple of other ones that will reopen after the lockdown. And then this other project that I'm going to work on, this is a really beautiful piece of red maple that we picked up in Grand Bend this summer, and I'm going to sand it down. I might have to take out a planer from the tool library to just take a little bit off the top, a tiny bit, and maybe a belt sander to bring it down, make it smooth. And then I'm just gonna like put in maybe some kind of light oil on it just to sort of help seal it. And then I think we'll just put it on our mantle for now. And the ultimate plan for this, I think, is to become a bench once we figure out where to put it. But that's the plan. For now, it'll go on the mantle, but it's going to be really, really nice. And that is basically my presentation. I think that you'll be able to share this with people, John Joseph. And here I've put these are links that will function through the PDF. This will take you to the tool library home. And then these are a few short YouTube videos on the tool library, which will fill in all the things that I've probably forgotten in my presentation. So that's it. And I'm wondering, does anyone have any questions or anything like that? Or
Can you stop sharing for a second so people can see you can see people's faces or put their hand up? Or
stop sharing. Yeah, there we
go.
go.
Put people on there. So do people have questions?
Hi, Kelly. It's May here.
Hi, May.
Hi,
oh,
how are you?
The project lady.
Sorry, I don't have my video on. I'm just going to move. You know what? You can make a bunch of those charcuterie boards out of that piece of wood.
Oh, I hadn't even thought. I don't think I'm allowed to cut that up, though.
No, oh, no, but if you pick up smaller pieces, then you can.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, cheese board and all this.
My husband does that. Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
They're very popular.
Job, Kelly.
Pardon me?
What do you work? Are you a teacher?
No, I'm an urban planner.
Oh, okay.
But I teach a little bit. I teach at U of T Scarborough and I teach at Ryerson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really creative. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Kelly, where would the tool library be in the neighborhood when it's open?
I don't know all the locations. The one that I go to right now is at 192 Spadina.
Okay.
It's on the west side, and it's part of the what do you call it? The Center for Social Innovation.
Oh, I know that one. Okay.
You know where that is? Okay, so it's it's in that building. So there's there's several organizations in there that do these kinds of, interesting community-based, I guess, projects, and yeah, so that's where it is. It's right there.
When you take out a tool, how long do you get it for?
Well, that depends on your membership. The membership that I have is the basic one, because I still don't really want to have them sitting here for too long, but 3 days is my membership. Plus you have to pay a small fee. Right. So if I take out the drill press, then I pay $5 and I can have it for 3 days. Basically it's 4 because if you go get it, they open at 3 p.m. and so you take it out on Friday.
Yeah.
At 3 p.m. you can go home and you can work over the weekend and you don't have to bring it back until like sometime Monday, and they don't open until 3 on Monday. So, you can get quite a bit done.
Yeah.
Kelly, it's Joan, you're so talented.
Yeah.
And creative. Like, my goodness. Like, kudos to you.
Yeah.
I was thinking the toolbox could also be a wine caddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. You'd be very popular. There you go. No, that's quite. And the other one, no, what? No, the other one you throw a bean bag at, so you paint them up and whatever.
Yeah, I'll sand it up, and then I'll paint a design on it. I think I'll put on part of them what do you call it? A chalkboard paint, so the kids can keep track, because they always like to see who's in the lead.
So I thought you might want to is integrate your wood with your china, and if you put a 3-tiered plate on one of your wooden boards, it would create an interesting something to display. I mean, for parties and whatnot. Mind you, it would be very, very sort of like an albatross, but it'd be quite because we actually must have 15 of those boards in our basement, ranging from tiny to big, and it's amazing how the more unusual the wood is, the more popular.
Yeah.
Like people want the wood as if it looks like it comes right out of the wood, the bush, and they've just charged with all the bark on it and everything else. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's quite something.
Yeah, we were in this market in just south of Grand Bend this summer. It's close to Pinery, where we really like camping there. But there was this one part of the market that this guy had. He had his own mill. That's where I bought that piece of red maple. Yeah, he had all kinds of small pieces. So I guess that May's idea would totally work. If he could, that's where I could get those. Yeah, it's a good idea.
So something I saw, where was it? Up in Port Carling. It was at one of those, fair days. And what the woman had done is taken ends of granite, from granite countertops. And what's interesting, you can use them for cooling. For example, if you put the granite in the freezer, then you can put sushi on it, then it's cooling. And then if you put the granite in the oven, you can use it for hot. But
yeah,
my brother-in-law works for a granite countertop company, and they have 3 shifts now, and they basically don't know what to do with the ends. So I'm not sure exactly what they're doing with them.
Really?
But so if you ever, if you want me to connect you with him, I can phone him up and say, but let me know if you're interested in doing something with them. Okay. Because all you have to do, I'm saying as if I know what I'm talking about, but get a device from the tool library, and you could make granite things. And I think in our neighborhood, they would be a hot seller. But I'm not sure if you want to get into selling, but you can gift them away or whatever you want to do. Yeah.
Do you remember the BMO building when the panels started to fall off?
Oh yeah, and they replaced them. Yes,
they replaced them all. So there was an opportunity that I had to get a couple of those panels, but I never did. But I thought that it would make a really, really fantastic coffee table.
And they were marble, weren't they?
They were marble, yeah. And you could drill in them, same sort of thing with a diamond bit, and Anyway, that's a good idea too.
It's a shame that there's in some of the older buildings there have been washroom stalls where there's sheets of marble 4x8, where all they did was go into the dumpster, and I thought, what a waste! What I mean, how criminal that is when you think of But it takes I'll share a funny story. So years ago, when we got a wood stove at home, if you were way back when people were all worried about the energy crisis, well, I guess we still are, but it was different. Oil went up so we got a wood stove. My dad took 2 years to figure out which one to buy, and he got a grandmother Fisher. I still remember that. And then we had to. Initially, he got used skids, and we were cutting them up. But then better news, he found a furniture factory where you had the ends. And these range from oak to maple to pine, and there were massive bins of these things of the wood, and we had piled wood in the backyard for a while. Yeah, but so there is things around. It's just a matter of finding out where the source is, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. But that sounds interesting. So because I like puttering around too, but we certainly don't have the room for anything. But so you can actually work on site at the tool library.
Yeah, you can. There's a place that's called they have areas within the library called Maker's Space.
Right.
And you can go in there and work on your own projects. And they have like several different rooms with some very, very sophisticated tools in there. Like there's like a 3D router you can do
3D.
Yeah, it's well, I don't even know how to use it yet, but you know, I think I might take a course on it, but because they offer this, but you can do like 3D routing. Routing is it's like a little drill with a blade, and it cuts out what you need, what the pattern is. Right. But they have this massive thing, you program it in, it's electronic, and then it just goes to work on it, and it can do a great big piece. That's just one really sophisticated, but they have you know, a huge table saw. They have a really large drill press.
Right.
Everything that you would need, planers, all that stuff. That you can go in there and work on things yourself.
I remember seeing something like that for stone, where it was a computer, I guess it was 3D drill for stone, and it was stone windows, like the ones you'd see at Hart House. But it was amazing watching this device transform the stone frames or the stone pieces into stone window frames. I can only imagine what that would cost to be installing in a house or whatever.
Yeah. A lot.
It's quite something. Yeah. So do people have some questions or comments or inquiries?
No. A question for Kelly. Membership rate.
I've got it here for you. I think, if I recall correctly, and Cheryl can correct me, I think it was $80 for a year.
80 a year. Okay.
I think so. Oh, hang on. No, basic membership is 55.
Right.
And that's for 3 days, taking something out for 3 days. And you also may have to pay a small fee if it's a larger tool. Okay. Then you can get a membership for 85. It allows you to borrow for 7 days. And then less tools you pay a fee on. And then for 110 a year, that's, I guess, the gold membership or whatever. And there's no borrowing fees, and there's no, like, I think 14 days you take it out. So if you were like a contractor, you know, and you needed a tool for a special job, like a small contractor, you had like you didn't have everything, you could join that for 110 bucks a year, get the tools you need for 2 weeks and go work on a project. You know what I mean? I think this is such a cool idea.
It is, instead of universal rental. Yeah, that's true.
Well, not everyone has to own their own chop saw, no matter what, like the tool companies say, you know, but I think, or their own lawnmower even, you know, so anyway.
Yeah,
Kelly,
to Stevenson's. Yeah.
Do they make sure the person knows how to use them before they walk out the door with it?
Yeah, they quiz me quite a bit, and like I went in there a couple of times to do some drilling in the shop, and then I took it home after that. So they were able to watch, and I'd used a drill press many times before, and so I was comfortable with it. So if you're not that comfortable, that was a question that was something I was going to mention. Thanks. If you're not that comfortable, they'll teach you how to do it.
That's good.
Like they'll make sure you don't hurt yourself.
And remove your hands. Yeah. No.
Well,
there's something. Yeah. I knew a man who was in his 80s, but he had been doing work for years, but he was doing table saw stuff. But he managed to remove the top of 3 fingers because he wasn't paying attention. Yeah. To your point. Yeah. No, you got to be careful with power tools, exactly. But you've got my imagination working overtime, and the potential of what could be done. And
now, just so you know, I spoke to the tool library people about this, and if like they offer, like if you were to reach out to them, and they could offer our membership a course or something. They can do that. They can craft it for the membership, whatever people might be interested in.
So they'll do courses on different things?
Well, yeah, I think they would do that. They would definitely, there would be a fee to it, but
for sure, yeah.
They would, you know, if there was a group of people who wanted to learn how to do this or that you could arrange for that, I think.
A 3D router, that would be interesting learning how to
well, you don't take that home. It's the size of this room, actually.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Thank
Yes.
heavens, my husband would probably want to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not cheap. They're like 10 grand or something.
Wow. Okay.
That would take up our whole basement. He's already got enough tools down there now.
Well, it's interesting how handcrafted everything has become the new norm, and there's a desire people have to have handcrafted, and even to get connected to making handcrafted themselves. It's quite. Have you ever done any work in wrought iron?
No, not for a long time.
Okay, but you did before. Okay.
Well, a little bit like this and that, but like
Okay.
I've used an arc welder and a
Okay.
cutting acetylene torch, but not for some time.
Okay. Okay. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, because that's becoming again the go-to thing one more time. Yeah.
Kelly,
Yeah.
it's Joan. Who started the program? Was it in North America? Was it in the States? Like who
Well,
originated
I think the idea does not originate in Toronto, but this one was started by a guy from Toronto.
Right.
I think one of those YouTube videos that I've put into the presentation will tell you the origin.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool idea. Yeah.
Well,
it is. Yeah.
It took them a while, but yeah.
Well, when you think about reusing things and not having everyone to buy the same thing, like, you know, it really is from an environmental viewpoint, as you said, it serves a lot of purposes.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many people that want to know how to do that, and especially downtown like that, like in that area, there's so many condos. There's thousands and thousands of people living down there. And a lot of them want to do stuff like this, but you just can't do it in your condo.
Yeah.
So you can go to the tool library and go into the maker space, and you can, if you need to do some work, you can sign something out, and then you don't have to find a place to store it in your condo.
Yeah.
So it's really great.
I'm surprised the artscapes don't take advantage of that.
Yeah, I don't know if they might have some kind of relationship, but that's it would be a pretty good
fit
match. Yeah, good fit.
It's interesting you mentioned the word maker. It's as you know, it's not a new word, but it's sort of having a new sense of popularity. When we were in Ireland, when I was on sabbatical, it was the southwest corner near Dingle, the Dingle Peninsula, where we ran into a person who used that term, and he had been doing leather work, been in a leather store for a couple of years, and he said, "I'm a maker." So basically, as the way he was interpreting it, he was good with his hands. He could launch into anything. Not bragging, right? But just the affinity to do things with his hands. And I thought, and there's a sort of rebirth of that as you were using the term maker yourself. Yes, it's exciting, very exciting.
I think that's one step above a putterer.
But well, I have to introduce you to my friend Joe Toby. Okay.
Sure.
Because some people call him a putterer, but he's not. You've seen the porch at the Manor in front of the church, right?
Oh yeah.
He made that. Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he just does things like that. He has it's not a shop, it's a warehouse. I mean, it's a ginormous thing that it's probably 100 years old. It was featured on Schitt's Creek. It's Joe's Garage. That's basically his shop. Okay. And but he is somebody, I call him the person, if you say, "Can you build the pyramids before breakfast?" He does it. He donates. Well, his main thing he does, he'll build handicap beds for people and give them to them. Oh, wow. Just because that's what he does. He's a heart of gold. But yes, I'll have to introduce you to him sometime next time we connect. And just because he has this knack. I mean, all you say is, "Well, Joe, I need this," and da da da. And next thing you know, he'll have an idea. And that was built essentially as for the nativity one year. And then we thought, well, let's put it back up because during COVID we needed a place to hang out. And then we rebranded it to be the porch, not the nativity anymore. And so there it is. And it comes apart too. And we put it in there's a workroom in Manor Road, but not so much sophisticated as what you're talking about. Yeah. Any more questions from Kelly? I mean, this has been remarkable, and And just two. Now, as you're thinking of, it's a 3-tier tray. If you figure out how to make a tea cart, a little bit more involved, there's a 3-tier tray could sit on top of the tea cart. But I will.
One question.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
John
Yeah, go May.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi, May.
If I was to take a project down there on Spadina Avenue and I go into one of those workspaces, do I have to bring my own safety goggles and my gloves and all this sort of thing?
Well, I think that they have safety goggles and gloves that you could wear. But the thing is that for me, I have my own safety goggles, glasses I use.
Right.
And I just prefer using my own because I got to choose which ones I wanted, because I find that they don't all fit everyone's face the same. So, but if you don't have that, then yeah, they can provide you with that.
So I guess from my point of view, if I'm going to be like a regular participant as a member, I should invest in my own safety goggles, especially now you don't want to wear of somebody else's.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you can get a nice pair of gloves to use.
Nice Gucci.
Yeah, well, the gloves that are really good because they have like rubber. You can get them for like, I think I got a pair for $5 or $7 at a Home Depot. You know, so it's not much to spend. And then glasses would be a bit more, but you know, you could always see if you like it first and then use their stuff and then buy something if you want it.
Okay, great, thank you.
But yeah, but everyone's welcome. It's a really, and the people there, like I go down there and I end up like just chatting with these guys for, you know, half an hour on stuff, you know, looking at different tools and things. I kind of get distracted, but yeah, it's a cool place. And I would encourage everyone, if you would like, to go down there or call them and see if there's a time to go down or something.
So Kelly, I'll check out with my brother-in-law about the granite ends. And one of the things they did is a donated member of my father at 51 Division. We made a prayer bench. We took, let me think, four sheets and one on top of granite ends and made a bench.
Oh, wow.
And the beauty, because it's granite, it's sturdy, it's waterproof, it's winterproof, and you don't worry about people falling off it because it's fairly hefty. And so any more questions? No? Well, Kelly, this has been super amazing. And I think once COVID's down, I see a field trip to a library or something, and or possibilities. And
I just want to say it's really nice to see you familiar faces, guys. Like I haven't seen you for almost a couple of years, it feels like, but it's nice to see you guys.
And Cheryl, if I have any more plates, I'll send them over to your way, okay, or whatever. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody, and have a good rest of the day and enjoy. Okay.
Thank you, John Joseph. Take care. I'll send you this this presentation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Kelly.
Kelly.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.